Good morning, Kevin. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts and opinions on this particular subject matter. And being that I am a Black woman, a person who has lived experience, multi-generational trauma survivor, and a mental health survivor of the system, I am. I think what I have to say is something that has impacted my life um, as a former Oregonian. So, what I think we need is, first of all, in, we need intentional representation on all levels of decision and policy making. I mean that to me that means having our Black people, our brown people, our indigenous people, and I'm not saying tokens. I'm saying having more than one, having pairs of people from those backgrounds. One person is great, but person in my experience, one person's voice is usually not heard, and they tend to become silent because they already know that they're not going to be heard, they're not going to be listened to, and they feel tokenized. So again, when you're going to bring people on these different levels, state, local, county levels of policy and decision making, make it intentional. People with lived experience, make it in groups of pairs at least, never single one person. That way we have a more um, even playing field, a little more equality. It's not such a subjective idea. Um, the next thing is I would love to see is more accountabilities in these organizations that's getting all this major funding to provide services to people with lived experience, and there's no accountability on how they're treating the people, if they're doing person directed services or not. You can write up a treatment plan and tell me to follow it. 9 times out of 10, that treatment plan is not reflecting what I want my treatment to look like. So it's not person directed. It's being told to me. And that right there shuts the door on myself and others that I know of. So the funding is steady going out, but no one's being held accountable for the deliverables that should be coming forth. Um, Also, trauma informed systems. We hear this catchphrase, trauma informed. However, trauma is a lot deeper than trauma informed. We are all informed that trauma exists. We're all aware that all of us have some form of trauma, but how are we responding to individuals with trauma? How are we treating people? Are we treating every single living human being as a person who has had some kind of trauma? Are we responding to them in that way with kindness and with dignity and with empathy? I don't see that happening in the services. I see everybody using, oh, we're trauma informed, but you're not treating people as if they're trauma. And with social media and the media and the things that's going on in the media and all the killing of the Black people, and we're actually watching these videos, we are becoming desensitized to the trauma, and Black people are stuffing this pain because we've lived this so long. It's been 600 years of us being murdered and slaughtered, and no one's speaking up, no one's listening. Then my final thought on this is, and it kind of goes back to my original thought of intentional representation. It's called, we talk about equality. Again, bringing one person to the table, one Black person, one Black woman, one Black male, that's not equality. It's one thing for us to have a seat at the table because we just have a seat. It's one thing for us to speak at the table, but but speaking at the table and not being heard is altogether different. And that has been my experience throughout being an Oregonian. Was I had a seat at the table, at many tables. My voice was not heard. When I spoke, I was dismissed. And that's not for one, that's not trauma informed. You know, for two, that's not having equality. You know, having equality is not just, it's about being heard, being valued, and being respected for what you have to say. So that's just kind of my feedback on a couple of different things about what we need to influence these policies, because these are the policies, and I am truly passionate because I've lived this. These are the policies that have affected my life. The policies that have been in place has caused me more harm than they have helped. They kept me sick in my mental health, you know, because of my trauma and being re-traumatized over and over and over again. So I really and truly hope and pray that you all will take some things into consideration and include more people with lived experience, because we know what works for us. So it's nothing about us without us. Thank you, Kevin, again for that.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me today. I am Alexandra Appleton, and I identify as a culturally specific consumer and provider of behavioral health care services. And I'd like to start by saying that Black mental health matters. And due to the enslavement, murder, rape, death, and torture, furthermore, a cultural annihilation, I hope that we recognize that mental health is directly connected to the physical health of Indigenous, Black communities of color in the global majority. To ensure that communities of color can be represented and or have influence over behavioral health care services, I have a couple suggestions. Number one is representation from top to bottom and bottom to top. Lived experience must be at the exact level. Number two is restorative justice principles. To name a few, equity and inclusive approaches are cool. Restorative equity lenses need to be instituted. And I would start with asking the individuals that have been affected by the post-traumatic slave syndrome, medical apartheid, and the COVID onslaught. Number three would be disrupt the stigma about how individuals that are non-white experience pain and how that impacts every single intersection of our lives. Invest in Black mental health marketing campaigns. I want to see people like me that are accessing behavioral health care services. I also want to see healthcare career opportunities for Indigenous, Black, and other communities of color so my children can see into the future. Number four would be representation is one thing, but appropriate compensation is another. What replenishes the vessels of our local community members that have already been stripped of so much? In my experience, the BIPOC have 4 jobs, also go home and have been silenced and stripped for too long. Safe to say, it is impossible to repair 600 years plus of violence and torture and pain in a decade, let alone a century. One way that we can help in this recovery process is by prioritizing permanent supportive housing in real neighborhoods, in real housing, and other opportunities for our children to get the appropriate cultural care that they need. Whatever comes, always follow up and always change accordingly without question. Let me tell you this one thing. The word no means no. It is a complete statement, and it does not require justification or any apology. So when services come to you, or you as leaders come to me, and you ask me what we need, and if I say no, that means no. Respect that, because we know the global majority, or I believe that the global majority can create systems constructed to do exactly what they are meant to do and do it better than the white dominant agencies. And we know that because despite being appropriately non-represented for years, we still serve white families, still serve white individuals, and still come and fill that gap for the white agencies. This is where the hope has always lied, and I really hold on to this. As you can see, I'm passionate about this. But this is another thing that I will end with. Because Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color, we talk beyond our noses. And this is what I ask our allies and our peers to do as well. Thank you for this opportunity, peers, mentors. Kevin, always love. Peace and Black Lives Matter.
Engagement or education on the topic is some of the biggest pieces that I think that we should focus on. Also, if you're also going to ask a question to a specific party, make sure that you're asking the question to a party that has a platform to be heard and that can be represented correctly. If you're going to ask a question with somebody who has been down that road, you're going to get a specific answer. If you ask the question to a party who has no knowledge of, how, people of color may be treated, or you're not going to get that answer. And what's going to happen is you're going to get misrepresentation. I think on both ends of the line, for certain parties who are going to ask a question, they need to have people that are going to be able to give an answer who have lived that road, who have been down that path. If you ask someone who hasn't been down that path, what happens is you get a very surface level answer. And obviously what we've seen is that doesn't help. Then what happens is you come back to square one and you say, hey, well, why didn't this work? Or what did we do wrong? In the beginning, if you would have asked, someone who had been down that road, who have maybe experienced those things, you gave them a platform that you actually were going to listen on, you probably would have gotten a different answer. I think that a lot of the things that are currently going on right now would have been resolved, or maybe not resolved, but maybe had a different outcome if we have listened in the past. Now we're up to this point where it's like, what's happening? What do we do? How do we fix it? And for multiple years, we've been trying to speak out on specific topics. The hard part is the topic. We didn't have the platform. It's unfortunate now with the current situation that this is the platform that's given us enough chance to talk about it. And I think that you need more people of color on these panels to be able to give a specific answer. The people of color can't look to the other parties for them to give an answer or speak for us. So you also need to have people that are engaged on that side and are educated on the topic to be able to give an answer.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. My name is Shannon Olive, and I'm the founder and president for Women's First Transition and Referral Center. We work to serve women transitioning from prison, women in recovery, and women that's recovering from trauma to help them to overcome their obstacles so they too can also become successful and productive citizens of our community. We want to ensure at every level in the behavioral healthcare delivery system that consumers of our Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities are representative and have significant influence over decisions of policy by 1, allowing our voices to be heard at the table when decisions are made. By doing that, in doing this, we are asking that there be more committees at the state and local levels and government levels to open up. So instead of the folks that are at the table, that there be more committee of lived experiences at the table, because we understand the issues and struggles that we are going through, instead of having more of the folks at the table addressing those issues, because of the fact that the continuous of the issues that's being addressed is not getting solidified, because money are being funded out to folks of lived experience so that we can address those issues. But when the issues are being addressed at the table, it's not getting solidified, when we should have more of our voices at the table when decisions are being made versus the funding being out to people of the struggles, when we can have more of us at the table to help address those issues and brainstorm so that it can be more of an equal balance. 2, we need to put a stop to funding more of the same organizations. And why that is because there are many of organizations such as Women's First that is doing great work. Not minimizing that large organizations who's been around for many of years is not doing great work, but there are many organizations that are in the pipeline that are doing great work too. And what happens is us smaller organizations constantly compete with one another. Instead of continuing to give the same organizations the same work, what happens is you guys need to create a strategy of having those larger organizations to be able to partner with the smaller groups so that everybody can be able to eat and we all can feed the village. So everybody can be able to get the pot of money. We can all have the resources. We can all get the services, and we can all be able to take care of one another. And this world, Oregon, can be a better place for everyone. 3, this also needs to have where the state and government organizations and elected officials need to create a committee where when you all fund organizations and agencies, then each quarter you guys need to go out and engage with those organizations and agencies that you funded to know more about, get educated more, engage, and get empowered about who you fund, and learn more of those resources, learn more of those services, learn more of those programs, and where that money was allocated to. So when the reports come in, you know more. When the issues are being talked about, you can talk about those at those meetings when you're making those decisions. Because this is more about how the work is being important, what work you're doing, and then this way we can all know when the decisions are made. You, as the government, state, local elected officials, or when the policies are made, then you can understand more about our Black Indigenous people of color and the representation that you are making decisions on. But this is why when we're talking about policies, this is how it's important to represent us. And this is why Women's First says it's important to fund correctly, be accuracy on how you doing policy, and working together with organizations for change. Thank you.